because in the spirit of cultural diplomacy is an open dialogue. Please.
And please introduce yourselves as well.
Yes, it's important.
And if you can use the microphone.
Self-introduction. Introductions.
Veronica Savar. I am of Spanish nationality, but I work in Brussels for the European Union. At the same time, I have the ambition to launch an initiative very, very, very soon on cultural diplomacy, precisely to promote the culture of peace. But I was hearing your, well, thank you very, very much, because I think your speech was extremely enlightening. But because you said that there is a difference between theory and practice, and I would like to know more about how to practice, how to put into practice the words that you've been saying. And more concretely, I would like to know a bit more of what you said at the end of your speech about the universal culture of peace. So if you could give us an idea of what needs to be done in order to spread a universal culture of peace, and then how to implement it, how to do it, how maybe citizens like me or us, and how governments, how the European Union can do and can contribute to spread this universal culture of peace, which I think would be definitely, I mean, a condition sine qua non for having a universal and global peace. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Same place at the same time in the UN to have maybe a discussion debate. So really, no one should hesitate. And as always, if you could briefly introduce yourself, we can do a round of kind of comments, questions, either for President Constantinescu or also for each other. Please.
Mr. President, my name is Ghazi Monir Ahmed. I'm living in Denmark, but I am originally from Bangladesh. Now I'm also thinking of democracy, how to build the democracy in origin Bangladesh. In present, in Bangladesh is absence of completely democracy. But the Bangladeshi Prime Minister came to here to UNO, he get a big speech and this and this. Everybody knows that she did several times in genocide in Bangladesh. She is not elected Prime Minister. She is a so-called elected people that boycott the election, but she came to UNO, but he give big media and everybody give big speech, and people give big clouds. So how could the you people invite her in UNO? Is one dictator, absence of democracy, absence of human rights, absence of any kinds of people cannot uphold their rights in Bangladesh. So-called Prime Minister come to UNO and give the big, every television showing her. She's meeting with the Donald Trump, she's meeting with the all European leaders and world leaders. So how could we develop our democracy? We are coming here to develop our democracy, develop our human rights values, develop our rights. But on the other hand, those people who do not have any contract with the people, and those you've invited those dictator to UNO, a dictator in World Summit, and give them sometimes I see Aung San Suu Kyi, she get Nobel Prize. Now she is she did the genocide several times. So how could we find, how could we get those kinds of problems? How could we develop our democracy? Thank you very much.
Would you like to offer a response, President Constantinescu? I think that was directed more to you.
It's important to have more questions.
Okay.
I was a professor in all steps to be president of university. And my experience like professor, long experience was a question is more intelligent like answers. Please.
I'm trying to summarize the...
Microphone maybe as well.
Oh, sorry.
And if you could introduce yourself.
Sanya Hanasak, Global Fellow, University of Edinburgh. Do you hear me? I've just been listening to all our conversations today, and there's a tension between the ability to have a healthy nationalism and a healthy sense of nationhood within the country and globalization. And the struggle at the moment is the threat and the balance of all those multiple issues. And I'm interested to hear from the congregation here on what your thoughts are, because that is the struggle at the moment.
Excellent. Now, the president was just asking who you were, so I showed him your bio briefly. Very excellent, but thank you very much for that. Let's continue maybe...
Cultural relations, your field.
But let's maybe take a few more. There were another question I'd be curious to also hear your feedback on too. Someone mentioned before, what is culture diplomacy? I could speak to you at hours about that, but in case someone wants to throw your thoughts on that issue as well, it could be great. But I see there's a hand here. Let's continue. And if you could please introduce yourself as well, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. President, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Sabir Michael. I come from Pakistan. Academician and a human rights defender. I teach sociology and the culture and the human rights. Keeping in view my geographical background, I am interested to know from the experience of you both that what kind of concrete small step can be taken at community level to curb religious extremism. Because you have worked mostly in arena of ethnicity, nationalism, but at the same time, the menace of the religious extremism is swiftly disturbing the world across the globe, and even no country is lacking behind. So, from your academic point of view, from your exposure and experience, what steps do you suggest to overcome the religious extremism using the cultural diplomacy? Thank you.
For additional comments or questions, really for an interactive session would be great.
I will actually.
Okay.
I'm turning on the mic.
We want to make our so wait a second.
Okay.
Or maybe you want to wait for the mic, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fixing it.
That's exactly the name of President of Prime Minister of Myanmar.
So I apologize. I'm Oktar Baguna from Turkey. I'm a medical doctor, brain surgeon, and I'm also TV channel A9, Turkish TV channel. Well, I want to add something of this lady actually. The fundamental of the problems, the conflicts, wars, bloodshed is lack of love in the world. If you can replace the lack of love with love, all the problems can be solved. There's a hatred between nations. There's hatred between races. The women are oppressed all over the world, more in the Middle East, but even in the Western countries. The number of for example, women politicians are everywhere less than men. There is a domination of the men everywhere. There's a hatred against animals. There's hatred against nature. There's hatred against this. People even hate themselves. So we have to replace that with the education of love. Diplomacy is, of course, a good way, cultural diplomacy, but reconciliation and love is also needed and very crucial. Otherwise, we cannot solve the problems. If you look at the Middle East, if you look at Syria, things are happening in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Egypt, even now in Spain or other countries, now between the US and Korea, there's a hatred. I mean, for example, look at the US and the Korea problem. they are talking about threatening each other, actually, with hydrogen bombs. You know what that means? An hydrogen bomb is 1,000 times stronger than the atomic bomb which was thrown to Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So does it mean millions and millions of people will die from that? For what? People are just, I mean, being arrogant or just a simple hatred. I mean, just why? World is enough for everybody. And so, for example, I talked about the racism. What's the underlying problem about the racism? Of course, God created in different races. Some people are white, some are black, Indians, Aborigines, Eskimos. So what's the difference? If you look at the difference, I'm a doctor. There are about five genes which control the skin color and some shape of the faces, for example. And different combination generates different skin color. So different combinations of the genes, which one is superior? Doesn't make any sense. It's senseless. I mean, this gene produces more melatonin pigment than the other ones, then becomes black skin color or dark skin color. And then if there is a less melatonin pigment, it's a white skin color. But there's a racism issue. There is this issue, that issue. So nobody is born with hatred and these radical views. It is being thought. There is an education of that in the families of the fanaticism, in the schools, in places, even in the books, school books. And if you, for example, think about the people. If you're a fighting animal, you're a fighting animal. If you fight, you will survive. If you don't fight, and if you are weak, you will get eliminated. Of course, this inevitably leads to communism, the fascism, or wild capitalism, and this is the source of the problems. So love is very, very essential, I think, and very fundamental to all the issues, because there is a lack of love. Without changing this, we cannot change the world. Things will get worse. It looks like it will get worse in the Middle East and all over the world following years. It's very easy to be tested because we will see it. And all of us, if we are alive, we will see that. But afterwards, there is a saying in my country, actually, if the knife goes into the flesh, it goes deeper and deeper until it comes to the bone. If there is hits the bone, the knife, there is nowhere else to go. And we will hit this point, I will think, in following years. But after that, the world will change. Something needs to be done. That's my humble opinion. But I agree. I mean, cultural diplomacy is, of course, important, but we have to replace the lack of love with love to change the world.
Additional comments or reflections?
No comment. Thank you, President. As Mark, we discussed from the morning is so many things, but we need something action. You know, when we are last January here in United Nations, the ICD's conference, but you know, situation is changing now. Now is all this building is from different countries, Prime Minister, President, is so many. But I need, this is my suggestion, we need raise voice. You know what happening is in Myanmar now. It is genocide. This problem is, you know, is the social media everywhere, but nobody can talk. Just we need awareness, our voice everywhere, not religious, not from the all faith, all culture, diplomacy. We can voice our raise, and from our discuss from this ICD must say something. Stop the killing is innocent people in Myanmar, Rohingya Muslim. This is my suggestion. It is the humanity. We are working for the humanity in the world. But is what happening now? It is the trouble. It's genocide. We do something. This is, thank you, President. Is this from our heart? This we need. This is our duty. You know, do something.
This conference is important because we have occasion to share different experience. It's a dramatic experience. I don't have an answer. But I can share my experience for understanding what is possible. In this situation in Myanmar, I have a personal approach because in 1992, my friend Havel invited Aung San Suu Kyi. He was a dissident, he was in prison. He invited in Czechia in the first democratic after fall of communist dictatorship, criminal regime. And 10 years after, when I am a member of Freedom Forum, Oslo Freedom Forum. Do you know Oslo Freedom Forum? I initiated, after the death of my friend Havel, initiated a special prize for creative dissidents, Havel Prize for Creative Dissidents. And the first prize was my occasion he was in detention, Aung San, but offer for this effort. His party was named National League for Democracy. What is possible for me is very difficult to understand. Now is the last news is engagement of Aung San Suu Kyi to assure, to come back, etc. But it's a dramatical world now. Oslo Freedom Forum is a forum where different dissidents who go. I was in New York. Yesterday I was present in Oslo Freedom Forum in New York. But this happened in all regions. What I want to share with you my experience. I was born in 1939, exactly in the moment of beginning of the Second World War. I was twice refugees in the front of Red Army to kill all people. My first memory is a refugee. As a second refugee, I was 5 years old. I remember my first memory in my memory is the people killed, bombing the plane. It was a disaster. The train to refugees in Romania was 2 weeks, hungry. This is my first memory. 50 years of my life was under criminal dictatorship. In Romania, population after the end of Second World War was 20 million. Communist dictatorship arrested 3 million and killed 1 million. In my family was the prison, tortured and killed. This was situation if in my country. This is my memory, this is my life. But finally, without any hope, finally was a fall of dictatorship regime, but without any help by Western democracy. Do you know what happened in 1989? But my last important memory is the University Square. I was with my son, my daughter, my students, and people cry. We fight for liberty, and we die for liberty. And the people was dead. In Romanian bloody revolution, 3,000 people was killed. Other 1,000 was arrested, tortured, and fortunately revolution saved their life. It's a cruel life. Why? Because we need to keep in our memory and to create a real empathy. And why is important to change experience? Was a controversy what said my friend Peter Stoyanov, but I want to share with you after my experience, after the end of communist dictatorship regime in space of the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe, all frozen conflict grew up. Was a situation between Romania and Bulgaria. It's a Dobroja, do you know? Was Bulgaria, Romania, a part of Transylvania was under Hungarian, because it's a long, long history. It's difficult to manage a history of in Levant. The history is 5,000 years. It's difficult to manage, and after fall of communism, and I was the president of Bucharest University, I was invited by different universities in Balkans. In each country, in each country, in office of the president of university and in history, was a big map. And this map was in Bulgaria, Great Bulgaria, including parts of Romania, of different. In Hungary was a map of Great Hungary, including part of Romania. In Romania was a map of Great Romania, including part of Hungarian, Transylvania. In Serbia was a big Serbia, because a part of Romanian south was a part of Lazar Empire of Serbia. And in each great Greece, enormous, no? There was a Greece with Byzantine Empire after Greece. All countries have different. And is a many in Levant, enlarging to the Balkans in the Levant. In Levant is a history more 2003, 2004, 5 millenniums of history. But when I launched in Academy of Cultural Diplomacy in Berlin, Levant Initiative for Global Peace, and my idea was, who is represented? Not Balkans, all is bad is focused on Balkans, but is a Levant. In my opinion, Levant is not only Middle East, but is also Balkans, Caucasus, and North of Africa, because was including in Alexander the Great Empire, in all this zone. After was a Roman Empire. After was a Byzantine Empire, 100 centuries, and finally was Ottoman Empire. And we can many things in common. It's all Abrahamic religions, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, coming from Levant. Levant is a cradle of democracy, because democracy was invented by Greece. Levant is a cradle of Roman law, because it was a Byzantine, Justinian Code was established in Constantinople, in Byzantium, not in Western Europe. It's a cradle of science, because geometry was invented in Greece, algebra was invented in North of Africa, in Arab science. And if we can change the history and use culture to build a culture of peace, because it's a long way to Tipperary. It's not easy, because we are under emotion of television, what happened, criminal action in different parts of the world. It's not our goal, because United Nations, if NATO, maybe other government work to stop open conflict or to manage frozen conflict. But what happened after? Is the most important problem is to change mentality. And we need the courage for this. Was my situation, because in my country, in Romania, Transylvania, for example, was a bloody 6th century of bloody conflict between Romanians and Hungarians. including Romanians becoming king of Hungary. Not important in Middle Age. Matthias Rex was a Romanian. His father was a Romanian, but not important. It was a bloody, bloody, bloody conflict. 6th century of bloody conflict. And after the fall of communism, in Romania after revolution, few months after, in Târgu Mureș, is a big town in Transylvania, where half of people is Hungarian, half of people is Romanian, exactly 50%. It was a bloody conflict between us. Why? Because Securitate, the name of political police, of criminal dictatorship Ceausescu, was annullated and need to rebuild and need to evoke national security and find the enemy. And in this bloody conflict, after the fall of communism, the professor and the student elected me president of university in first academic election, because 60 years Romania was under royal dictatorship, military dictatorship, and communist dictatorship. And the rector was named by the dictator. And I was the firstly. And I said with my friends, writers, artists, musicians, to go to Budapest and to talk with our partners, represented artists, writers of Hungary, and said, stop. What is this? We work to restore the manner, like what happened here, restore the comportment of dictatorship. And we acceded. And after, when I was elected in the board of rector of European Conference, fortunately, the president, first democratic president of Hungary, was elected Gönc. Gönc was before president of Union of Writers, and he was condemned to death during communist regime. And he invited me in the presidential palace. I was not president, I was rector. And I proposed him cultural reconciliation. And Gönc said to me, Emil, what is this cultural reconciliation? I said, cultural reconciliation, my opinion, is not to deny the past, assume the past. We have 6 centuries of bloody conflict between us. Yes, assume the past. It was the past. And we proposed a solidarity for the future. And it's not easy, because when I proposed to accord to Hungarian minority, 7% in Romania, the 7%, accord the right over all the right in Europe, the right to use language, Hungarian language in administration, to use Hungarian language in justice, and in education, including university. And my first visit in European Parliament, because Romania was under monitorization by the Council of Europe, I said in this moment, it's finished of materialization. Why? Because our is over European. The right of minority is over. You have in Europe, in other country for European Union, you have a university for a minority? No, we have. And with me is a representative of Hungarian people. And I introduced in first government representative of minority, because it's a lack of confidence. And I said, yes, we are Minister of Information was a Hungarian, and the prefect in there was a Hungarian. And this is, but it's not possible to export solution. Each country, each people have a duty to find a solution. For us for my nation, for the Romanian, for the history and the future for all the next century was very important. Romanian people was not liberated by United States, by European Union. No. People fight for democracy, dead for democracy. Maybe new generation not forgot. I am a survivor. I am old man, I am a survivor. Many people forgot maybe. But, and I finish, it's important, don't forget pedagogy of sufferance. It was the dramas of Serbia, no? Romania have a position because in the conflict with Milosevic, I assume this, and this is what is the Serbian people in our history, between Romanians and Serbia, don't exist in a history of conflict. It was a very strange in the history of Eastern Europe and Balkans. It's a single people don't having any conflict. And in the Second World War, Hitler proposed to Serbian, a part of, you have a Banat, is the same, is a Serbian Banat and Romanian Banat. Hitler proposed to Serbian all Banat, proposed to Romanian all Banat. Romanian and Serbian refused. It was exactly history of Second World War. But it was a decision, and I said, Milosevic is president of Serbia. My duty is to support democratic forces. And the first visit of Gingic was in Romania, because I supported him when he running for a mayor of Belgrade. The president of Union of Writers read my message in University Square. And I received Vuk Drašković. Drašković is a very nationalistic. Because we have academic with the same. Kostunica was my friend. Because the Serbian is a big people. And now after in Balkan Political Club and our union, our duty now is to support for Romanian, Bulgarian, Croatian, Slovenian, member of European Union, is to support a rapid integration of Serbian in European Union without push to conditions. I invite you to share different experience from your country. ICD proposal was a delegation from academic milieu for Myanmar. You remember, it's my colleagues in Bucharest University, Vlad Nistor, is a professor. He is a professor of history, of antique history, and proposed a delegation to go to Myanmar and to talk with Aung San Suu Kyi. But I repeat, our goal is more to build culture of peace. For understanding the other part, this is the key. We are be able to understanding people different. I consider tolerance is not enough tolerance. Tolerance idea is I accept your existence, but finally you accept my domination. You accept my domination. No. Understanding the other is more. Understanding the other is a real dialogue, and at the end of this dialogue, I accept to change my position and to accept if your position is better.
Maybe I'll just add to that too, and then I'm happy to take some other questions and comments regarding cultural diplomacy. What can cultural diplomacy do? You know, these challenging issues, human rights violations, conflicts, war. Sometimes I think we feel helpless in the sense, you know, can culture do anything? Can cultural diplomacy do anything? And I think it can. I think one of the transitions we've seen from the past culture diplomacy, in the past you really saw culture diplomacy was something about persuasion, something about propaganda. How do we win the hearts and minds of foreign audiences? Good Institute, British Council, Alliance Française, some of the famous examples. Today, as President Constantinescu was saying, cultural diplomacy can help us to build trust. So I think that's one thing, even if there's a conflict or a human rights situation, that trust, I think, could be very, very important. Secondly, it can help us to raise awareness to things that maybe certain people aren't aware of, whether it's human rights violations, etc. So I think that raising awareness can also be very helpful in and of itself. Thirdly, the more cultural diplomacy there is, the harder it is, I think, for extremists to function. How can it be that, there's such a rise of extremism around the world? I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a German saying, der nicht weiß, muss alles glauben. He who doesn't know has to believe everything. So I think in that sense, let's inform people. The more experience I have with Israelis and Palestinians, the harder it will be to convince me that all Palestinians are like this or all Israelis are like that. So that's where I think cultural diplomacy can also very greatly assist. Will it save the world alone? No. Can it? Of course not. But I think it can assist in those ways. So building trust, raising awareness about issues, and making it more difficult for extremists of all sides.